Welcome to Framework. I'm John, one of the hosts of Framework, and with me as always, the other host of Framework, Al. Happy Superman Day, Al.
Oh, thanks, man. Happy Super Day to you, too.
Sure, yeah.
I was trying immediately to go to a super harem joke of some kind, but it's too early in the morning for that. I'm not sure that's a thing that fit in this movie all that comfortably anyway. So let's put off the super harem talk until 15 minutes into this.
Joining us, returning to the program, you last came to speak to us, Alex Fletcher, on the subject of, the announcement of the James Gunn DC universe starting up. We talked about this when it was announced, when the film was called Superman Legacy, and we didn't know anything about it other than we were going to get 12 of these in short order for the second half of the 2020s. So now we have seen the first film of the DC James Gunn universe, 2025 Superman, starring David Corn Sweat as Superman and a bunch of other people too. We're here to talk about it. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back. I love it. It's Happy Super Monday.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So you're our Superman expert, such as it is. What's the verdict on this one?
Hooray. I woke up this morning and I have not wanted to put on my Superman t-shirt in quite some time, and it was the first thing that I pulled out of my drawer this morning, and I don't know how subliminal it was, but I was putting it on, I was like, oh, I haven't worn this in a while. And so the fact that I wanted to pull it out is like, yes, I just saw it last night, right? So it feels very good. It feels very satisfying. I left that movie being like, wow, I don't hate the world right now. This is wonderful.
I think that's probably what he wanted to achieve with this most of all, make you stop hating the world for a little while. At least that's how it felt to me. I had a great time with this too, man. I think I said this in the last time we talked about Superman. He's never really been my guy. I've never really loved any of the Superman films, not even the beloved Christopher Reeve ones. I think this is my favorite Superman movie. Pretty sure.
Why?
Well,
we got an hour.
I guess it's in contention for my favorite as well, but partly because I don't have a beloved Superman movie. The Reeves movies, I think I always liked in pieces, more than as they never really hung together as a whole to me that I've found compelling as a child or an adult, I suppose. And I guess I'll be the detractor here because this is one too where there are so many. Maybe I'll talk myself into liking this almost as much as you guys do over the course of the next hour, because I can identify so many individual pieces and choices made here that I approve of and I like. And yet, as the whole thing did not fully cohere for me, and I think that's probably has tons to do with factors outside of the movie itself. I don't know how to get around that though. There's no way for Superman 2025 to exist as its own object that does not, one, it's bringing in real world stuff from the writer director's actual life and from the current political environment. And it has to just exist in contrast to whatever's going on with Marvel and whatever's gone on with the prior DC Snyderverse. And so I don't know. I found myself nodding and approving of a lot of I see that was a good choice you made there, but not fully swept up in things ever.
I found that first off, it's hard for this to exist in a vacuum. I think maybe more than other people, even other characters. That is to say, Superman has to kind of be sort of tabula rasa when it comes to the ideas of superheroism. It has to be in response to trends in the current zeitgeist of superhero cinema. Kind of everything does at this point, because that is the dominant form of cinema. No matter how much it feels like it's on the decline, these are still the films people turn out for. And, we're going to get tons more anyway. This is known to be starting a new cinematic universe. We're introducing the tone and a lot of the characters and sort of new versions of famous characters here. It is existing within sort of, a lot of political ideas, and is also kind of one of the most overtly political superhero films that has been made recently. And there have been a lot of superhero films. So that's saying something. It wants to be of the moment.
Let's start. You talked about the need for us to be tabula rasa stuff, and so maybe we start with the opening text crawl here, because this is one decision where I'm not sure. I think it may have thrown me off, and I never fully got up my bearings again. So traditionally, Superman is the first superhero. Like, that's how he's known in popular consciousness. Yeah. There's comic strips and whatever where that's not technically true in real life. But in terms of the DC universe, I feel like even up through Man of Steel, he's presented as the very first superhero and the biggest and strongest. And because of that, there's like a purity to a Superman. And maybe, later, grimmer, grittier heroes, your Batmans and all the way up through your Rorschachs and the Watchmen, are sullying something that was pure and good about Superman and his identity to begin with. That's sort of built into even the DC Extended Universes. This Gunn version flips that around, and we get 300 years ago, metahumans entered the picture, and Superman didn't enter the picture until 3 years ago. So he is a latecomer to a world that is already filled with superheroes and gods and monsters and so forth.
This is one of the things I loved most about this movie.
Okay.
It removed so many of the obstacles to Superman for me. Like, you didn't have to tell a Superman origin story. You didn't have to tell us, if we're just talking about comic books, right? There was the golden age of comic books, right? World War II was when a number of superheroes came out. Superman doesn't arrive until, like, in the continuity of comics, until modern times. In the history of, like, I guess, movie superheroes, right? Superman was the first. But that's not true in the continuity of DC Comics, right? There were generations of metahumans before. Now, most of the metahumans of stories that existed, like Jonah Hex and Vandal Savage and others that existed, like Jonah Hex was Cowboy Times, and Vandal Savage has been around for hundreds of years. He's a bad guy. But it just feels like it took this pressure of making Superman a baseline off the table, right? He was setting up a world. James Gunn set up a world in that original crawl that's like, okay, this is a world where metahumans exist, aliens are here, superheroes are around, and they did a really good job of, throughout the rest of the movie, like, every time there was a monster fight, there was just some dude drinking coffee in his office just watching the monster fight. Like, this is not a thing that is different than what happens on a regular basis in this metropolis, and I loved that. Like, maybe we'll get to this, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but my favorite scene was when Lois and Superman were sitting around, and the other superheroes were fighting that eyeball monster outside behind them, and they were talking about love and their relationship. And, like, that scene just, like, I loved everything about that scene. And it just spoke to, like, okay, we're taking this specialness of Superman because of his powers off the table and letting us focus on what makes Superman special, which is his goodness. And when you spoke about, like, the larger DC universe and what universe are they building, and this is the thing I think I'm still on the fence about because I don't know where it's going, he was, like, the only good guy, right? We talked before about, like, it's hard to make a Superman movie because he's such a good guy, right? But he was the only good guy, right? Everybody else was the snarky, cynical, somewhat bitchy, jaded, although they had superpowers, everybody else, Supergirl, Crypto, everybody, except for Superman, right? And so James Gunn's creating this universe that includes Peacemaker, that includes Waller, that includes all of these other pieces that are darker and are grayer and are more modern. But I'm so, so, so happy that he found a place for Superman, this core goodness, this core joy, this core humanity, which is what the movie's really about, this core Superman-ness in this world that is going to be a more modern, gray world where not everybody is good. And what makes Superman special is not his powers, but his goodness, which is sort of what I was talking about last time, which is what I think Superman is really about.
I do feel like that is an interesting sort of angle I inserted. Yes, this is a movie or a world full of superpowered people, but Superman is the only genuine hero of the bunch. I think that's a little mighty, but the Justice Gang does end up on the side of the angels here, and he doesn't really have conflict with them. They all kind of, he's the Boy Scout, whatever, and
they're cops though. They're kind of they're cops,
but they're also on his side from the start, and they don't really ever fear from that. It's a question of how far out of their way will they go to help him, and it turns out as far as they need to. But I think that's what mighty. The thing about having a world where superpowered people have been around for a couple hundred years is sort of like immediately throws me in disarray. It just raises all these questions that the movie doesn't need, shouldn't be spending time dealing with. But I have a hard time okay, so was there an American Civil War in this? And what was it fought by superpowered people?
There's no New York or Chicago or L.A. in the DC universe.
Is that true? I always thought the thing was that actually all the cities exist plus a Gotham and a Metropolis.
Yes, they all exist, and Coast City and Bloodhaven and Midway City or whatever it is. That's where
Crescent
the Flash
City.
Is.
That's the Flash one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about, the DC universe has, and I'm sure Marvel has its version of this too, that Apocalypse has actually been around since ancient Egypt or whatever, but that tends to get layered in retroactively, and it's always with this sort of understanding or the framing of the superhumans didn't go public or start influencing world events the way that the big Justice League battles will until relatively recently in history, because that's just so much more manageable than having an alternate reality that diverges 500 years ago versus
when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, there's Vandal Savage and Jonah Hex in the couple. There's a couple of them that have existed, but at least in the DC continuity, there were a couple, but there weren't that many, right? Enough to change world history until World War II with the Justice Society, which, the Justice Gang is pieces of the Justice Society and pieces of the more modern, late 80s, early 90s goofy Justice League.
I think the opening crawl saying that they emerged 300 years ago, ushering in a new age of gods and monsters, suggests that there is a bigger divergence there. Again, this is not really what I want the whole movie to be about, but the opening crawl kind of backfooted me a bit, and that may have contributed to my having a hard time ever fully finding my footing in this world.
3 centuries is a while, and I don't know why that wasn't exactly needed beyond. We're doing a thing with 3.
Rule of 3.
So I'm wondering if that was the thing that drove that decision, because 3 centuries is that's interesting as table stakes. My thinking on this was that it's just a sort of a meta reaction to the fact that this film is not being released at a time, when there's much material to be mined from the first superhero story. He's coming into a market where there are 4 superhero movies released a year for the last 20 years. We're in a world of superheroes already. And, every version of Superman has been oh no, a new superhero thing is happening. He is the first one in every version of that, at least in the film versions. Certainly how Man of Steel and the Reeve film handled it. So it kind of is this is the one releasing in 2025. We have to change that. We have to mix it up. Audiences are used to superhero universes and superhero gangs and, monster attacks.
From a practical standpoint, it feels like he's doing a lot of genre work, right? With the True Crime Lanterns movie, and the Clayface thing apparently is going to be body horror, right? And if he wants to do a Western, if he wants to do a noir 1920s, it gives him the flexibility of just being yep, there were metahumans back then. It's fine. We can do a show set in 1850, and it's fine. We can do the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Ooh, yeah, please.
It opens up some possibilities and closes off others. managing 300 years of alternate history timeline is a more complicated feat than having a divergence that happened after World War II, or even more recently in like Man of Steel's case. But also the point I'm making here about it is there is a distinction in my mind between, you don't have to do a Superman origin story. It doesn't have to be a first contact story necessarily. But you could drop us in media res and into a world where Superman was still the first metahuman. You don't have to do a divergence 300 years ago in order to do structurally what this movie does, which is we're going to open in the middle of maybe towards the end of a fight in a world where Superman's been established for quite some time. For him to be a latecomer, does it change something fundamental about the character? Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that is the freshest thing about this take is that he is a late coming addition to an already established superhero universe rather than the bedrock of it.
Well, another thing we talked about last time was my issue with Superman, or one of my issues, has just been, well, he's too powerful. And it felt like a lot of this film was structured to get around that, to find a way that wasn't the case. You know, there are things that can hurt him. There are people he can fight that are a match for him. I mean, you know, the main physical threat is literally a dual version of him. So he is not unstoppable. That it is not about how you get around a physical fight with him. They're leaning into that.
But that's been the case at least half the time. I mean, it was in Superman 2, in Superman 4, it was in Man of Steel.
Superman 4
Doomsday
has a similar plot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, so I guess that's always a thing that they are kind of having to deal with.
Yeah.
So a thought I had on the way home from the movie last night when I was like really thinking about it. Again, I'm just skip to the end when they do the crypto moment at the end with Lex Luthor, the Hulk smash Loki moment. Other than fighting himself, we can discuss who we think that is if we would like to. Other than fighting his clone, he doesn't use his powers to take heroic actions to drive the plot forward. The kaiju monster fight is completed by the Justice Gang. Crypto really does the job with Lex Luthor, right? Like a lot of his powers, a lot of his powerful moment, like his powerful moment was supposed to be the speech at the end when he's talking to Lex Luthor, not some show of super force, right? He uses his powers to save the baby.
Yeah,
right.
Morpho kind of has the last word on that action sequence, though, to save the day. You know,
so like they're getting around his powers by like almost not having him use them to drive the plot forward. He's using them to kind of like do stuff, but not.
But oddly, the whole plot is driven by him using his powers to do that. But it's an off-screen thing that happened before the movie started, where he intervened with this Baravia Jaranpur situation. And it's framed as, actually, I don't really know where it comes down. Was that a bad thing or a good thing?
But Al, again, it comes down to me, like, clearly based on the ending, any of the heroes could have done that, right? Guy Gardner comes in and uses his ring and does exactly the same thing with a middle finger that Superman did off screen at the beginning. But why Superman did that thing at the beginning, I think, is what the point of the movie is, right? People were going to die, right? And so it's not about, again, I'm going to say this a lot, it's not about Superman's powers. They got around the power problem by actually not making it about his powers. And when he did use his powers, it was not for super impactful moments, no pun intended.
Well, I mean, maybe I'll talk about out of both sides of my mouth on this issue as we go, but I kind of agree. Like, that is what you need to focus on to make Superman a character worth caring about. But also, if you're going to make an entire movie about Superman where none of it's about his powers, then you might as well be make a Captain America movie then, or make a, so like, if you're avoiding all the stuff that defines the character, which is that he is a god.
So I guess this is where we differ. I don't think being a god is what defines the character, right? There have been plenty of super powerful, with every power in the universe, superheroes, and none of them have been Superman. Superman is Superman because of who he is as a person, not because of his powers. He can't turn invisible. He can't change time, despite what the first Superman movie said. Like, there's a lot of things Superman cannot do.
But mostly he can do whatever the writer wants him to do in that moment. Like, I mean,
so can any
there's
superhero.
so many things he can.
Like,
he can do
Green
more than
Lantern can literally do anything that the writer wants him to do.
I think I agree with your principle. Like, it has to be his humanity that makes him worth rooting for. It's not just his strength, because otherwise,
I mean, he does a lot of the
Snyder
stuff,
movie.
man. He does a lot of the stuff, and he's lifting up buildings. He's saving squirrels with his power, or ladies in cars. He does the
right, but he's not the one who solves the problem. He's not the one who solves the problem. He stops the building from killing the lady in the car. He's the one who saves the squirrel, and he shoos the dog out of the way before the kaiju steps on it. But he's not the one who defeats the kaiju.
No, but he's using his powers to help people more than he is to defeat things.
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He doesn't solve the problem with his powers. Someone else uses their powers to solve problems. In the way that James Gunn has directed this particular movie. And I'm not saying whether I think that's good or bad. I'm just saying that they've gotten around him being super powerful. I
prefer this to the Superman Returns approach, which was just like, well, I guess he can lift stuff, right? Let's just have him lift things over and over again. That's kind of all they came up with him for him to do in that film. So they're doing varied things. Like, I mean, there's the barrel roll thing, where he spins around and shoots lasers in 360 degree to hit all the bad guys flying at him. That's pretty effective use of the powers there.
He filled up his combo meter, and
yes, he did.
Special
but that doesn't. Okay, yes, but that doesn't solve the problem, right? Fighting a bunch of cronies doesn't solve
the immediate problem. I mean,
of being swarmed by robots.
Of being swarmed by robot guys, yeah.
Well, so the thing is, like, obviously, this movie does go out of its way to make the Superman more vulnerable than the past. I mean, like, not to keep us mired in the first 45 seconds of this movie, but our opening introduction to this cinematic universe, to this Superman, is him lying, like, bloody and battered in the snow. That the text crawl ends with, he just lost his first battle. And I'm kind of like, this is where I talk out of both sides of my mouth, because I do kind of think that generally advocate, have your heroes lose as many fights as possible. A movie that tends to endear them to me, but also this is an odd, kind of willfully perverse way of introducing the Superman in your cinematic universe, and introducing your cinematic universe is to show him beaten before he's done anything impressive or
almost like they're humanizing him right from the start.
Right, and that's a finer line maybe that I like. Here's what surprised me most about this movie is that I walked out of this movie with a greater appreciation for Man of Steel, which I did not expect. And I think, like, neither of them are the perfect thing for me, because what I feel like Gunn nails in this, he has affection for the character of Superman, in sharp contrast to Snyder, who, and that's what's so off-putting about his stuff. Yeah, is that he has an evident contempt for Superman's goodness. He only respects his strength and his power, and he thinks he's kind of a dolt for trying to do good with it. I mean, it's one of the most tone-deaf moments in all of cinema history when he has Pa Kent tell him that maybe he should let a school bus full of children drown because it would inconvenience him personally to save them. Not like endanger him, but inconvenience him. Like, I don't know. You'll make your life more complicated.
Yeah, because he also did save the bus, and it was fine, by the way, is the other part.
Exactly. What Man of Steel gets, what Snyder has, is a reverence for Superman. Snyder only has reverence for his godlike power, which is the wrong part of it. But Gunn is too irreverent to maybe do Superman to its maximal potential in a way. Like, this is a very, very irreverent movie, and that's not just jokes. It's also introducing Superman as bloodied and beaten, rather than doing something impressive and heroic.
I guess I feel like I'd love to talk about the James Gunness of this movie.
We're going to have to.
Yeah, but I that was when we talked about it. Like, my fear about him doing a Superman movie is the irreverence, and what I feel like I so thoroughly enjoyed about this is that he kept all of the irreverence that he wants, but he kept it away from Superman.
Oh, I think it was all over him.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that. I felt like every other hero was flippant and douchey and some selfish, or Hawkgirl killed the guy and blah blah blah. But
the douchiness is kept off of Superman. That is thankful for that. Like that.
Like
that's a big part of the Gunness. Yeah.
But the irreverence. I mean, there's jokes that are repeated from James Gunn movies. That's okay. So here's what I guess why I let off with: this movie cannot exist in a vacuum, and part of that's sure. We live in a postmodern world where everything exists. Even movies are as much about the discourse around themselves as they are about the actual story they're telling. And that's more true of superhero cinematic universe things than even other movies. But it's true of a Jordan Peele movie too, to some extent. And this is a movie that doesn't really try and fight that. It embraces it. But as much as this is about real world politics or the director's biography or whatever, it's also just a superhero movie after 25 years of superhero movie saturation. And so we are getting repeats of scenes we've seen before. It's kind of unavoidable. It's also the 5th James Gunn superhero movie. So I'm seeing repeats of scenes that I've seen James Gunn do before. The Mr. Terrific action sequence where he's got Lois Lane in the force field, and he's just mauling this army of goons with these balls that are just kind of floating around independent of him. That is Yondu going through the Ravager ship and with his flying arrow in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And there's other Guardians action scenes that can be compared to too, but it's really specifically that one, and I've seen that too. You mentioned Crypto doing the Hulk smashes Loki bit with Lex Luthor to end this movie. Like, we've seen that exact thing. I mean, Crypto himself, the Guardians have a superpowered space dog by the third one themselves.
Cosmo.
And one of the things that's most, innovative about this or surprising about this is the whole thing with the Superman's message from his parents and how that turns out, the twist around that. But that's also exactly what Star-Lord went through with his dad in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. It's we're really repeating things here, and including Gunn repeating himself.
Peacemaker as well, rejecting his father's.
Do the same shit too.
I guess so. In a bigger picture, I as I was watching this movie, and I think it was after the T-Spheres fight, which is the one you're talking about. I almost felt like, what's his name? The director who is so specific that.
Wes Anderson?
Yes, thank you. How Wes Anderson has now become basically like a spoof of Wes Anderson movies, right? Mm-hmm. Where I almost feel like, and like Saturday Night Live can do a Wes Anderson horror movie spoof and everybody gets it and it's hilarious, right? Mm-hmm. Where I almost feel like it's becoming that with James Gunn. Like, yeah, okay, cool. Another sequence, classic rock dude fighting and just tearing up guys while Lois Lane sits in the bubble. It almost feels like a parody of James Gunn.
It could be AI generated James Gunn action scene.
Right. Like, just so specific to that. So that was just something I was thinking as I was watching the movie.
I think you guys are right. I do also think that the reason that this has happened is because he's the man for the time. He is, this is his 5th superhero film in the last, 15 years. At least. And I don't think we've got anybody who's been as successful with this. I would say that's 5 hits. I think all of these have been successful, not just financially. Well, I didn't even know if Suicide Squad was financially successful, but it's weird pandemic stuff there. But regardless, I think they were all creatively
It was successful enough to get a Peacemaker spinoff out of it. And
to be handed Superman, I suppose.
Yeah. And the first Suicide Squad is widely seen as a disaster, and that's seen as a corrective to it. So I think you have to mark that as a success, regardless of what accounting.
I do. I do is my point. I like he's 5-0. And I would say kind of does this thing better than just about anyone else. He is the man for the time. We're having this massive influx of superhero films. I think that he has risen to the fore because he is kind of the appropriate guy to make these in the way that they are most successful.
And his are different than every other one. That's like it has a touch,
except for themselves,
right?
Which you said it's become a subgenre unto itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's got the things that people want out of these. I think that they are irreverent and funny, like legitimately funny in kind of a way that does not break the reality. They are all earnest. Maybe not Suicide Squad, but the Guardians films and Superman are deeply earnest, even when they are ironic. He loves these characters. He has great affection for them and wants them to be happy. And that matters, I think. I think that translates and people feel it. And that's why those films are beloved. And why I think this new Superman has the potential to become a whole thing is because the characters work because he loves them. Like Mr. Terrific, I've never heard of before this. I thought he ruled. He was really cool. And he wasn't even the most...
Mr. Terrific? Oh, yeah, that Mr. Terrific, yeah.
He wasn't even the most creative. Like, he's doing Yondo stuff and other things I've seen but he's just cool in this. He has he has attitude and personality.
Yeah, he's well cast, and it's a good performance. He's kind of a standout. I do think, though, that part of what that's so successful about those other movies and Gunn's approach to them is that he has affection for them coming from an outsider or a misfit perspective. That the Guardians, the Suicide Squad, the Peacemakers, for as much as successful as Guardians was and got them to way closer to the center of the Marvel Universe than anybody would have expected going into that. The approach there is still, these are kind of the screw-ups, and these are the misfits or whatever.
Lovable losers.
Yeah, that's who James Gunn has affection for. You can't make Superman a lovable loser. And
they gave a real shot here, I think.
Yeah, it's...
You can when you put a person who is genuinely good into our world / this world where
this is so much
no one is purely good. And so that does make him a loser. That does make him an outcast. It's his purity that makes him different.
Well, he's a square, though. That's what's different from that. I think James Gunn has to stretch himself to do a square. And his version of that is, you like Green Day.
Well, this was always going to be a stretch, I think. The idea of him doing the Superman. We talked about this last time. When it was announced, I was like, well, I don't know if he's right for Superman, though. And I do kind of appreciate the way he brought it.
And now you are sure that he's right, and I'm not sure anymore.
Well, I mean, yes, I am, I guess. I mean, this is the thing I want. And it's because he's embracing the sort of Silver Age kind of playfulness of a lot of this, that beyond just making him more of a human, there's the world building here is goofier, is sillier, and it belongs in a lot of bright primary colors, and there's room for a lot of goofiness here.
It felt like a live action cartoon to me.
Yes, exactly. And I'm a big fan of those. Mm-hmm. I think those are really good. And I've been wanting that for a very long time. In fact, when they cast Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, I was like, finally we're going to get the Luthor I want. We didn't. Now we did. Now they finally did a Luthor that I think kind of is what I've been wanting from this role. And, I knew I wanted that. I didn't know that I wanted that version of Superman. But it turns out I did, and they got the right guy to do that. I think David Corn Sweat is kind of excellent in this. I think he's wonderful, really well used, and it's the sort of, I guess it's always an unknown playing Superman, but...
a quick pin in that, I think we should just talk about the cast as its own thing in a minute, but that's going to be all positive stuff. So before we get to that, I got one more negative thing out there. It's related to what you were just saying about this being a live action cartoon. The negative spin I put on that is, honestly, it felt more cartoon than live action to me. And I don't think the action looks that great in a lot of this. And some of the effects do not look that great to me. And that it's coast by because it's got a cartoony vibe. That's not a huge deal. But I don't know. At some point, I feel like we're so deep into superhero stuff and Superman movies at this point. Whereas flying through the air, two super strong people flying through the air punching each other while they're flying is never going to be a compelling physical image to me. I've decided, and that's not even getting into how bad the Ion River looks, or that the dog. I mean, they used a real dog here, maybe.
No, I don't think they could have.
A lot more work, but
I don't think they could have. I think that I don't think
wasn't a
you're
fan
going
of
to
the
see
effects.
live action animals in movies anymore. To be honest, I think that's over. You know, unless if anything with a budget over $50 million, you're going to have CGI animals, which is also more humane. So it's not even that bad. Yeah, but you know, you can't be doing this stuff with a real dog. Can't be launching him at people.
Well, I'm not saying the dog needs to do his own stunts. I'm just saying for the ones when he's just licking somebody's face, could they have a real dog for reference in there? It doesn't. You guys can refute me all if you want, but yeah, I don't know. The effects work here
I mean, I really like the look of this film. I think the effects really work for me. The scene that bothers people, the Proton River and in the prison dimension, it's maybe my favorite scene in the film, actually, because it feels pure Silver Age kind of scenario. You know, you tell me, Superman, Krypto, and Metamorpho are trying to escape a black hole and a proton river in a pocket universe with a penal colony, and all that stuff. I'm just like, this is fun. This is super fun. This is exactly the sort of scenario I want to see enacted. And it does kind of have that look of, Saturday morning cartoon, which I think is the aesthetic that is appropriate here.
Yeah, if you want to worry about Superman's powers, put a baby in his arms and make him do stuff while holding a baby in his arms. I thought that was very clever.
Well, that's it. He's in the river there holding the baby up, and I'm like, that's one of the things where I'm nodding to myself, going, okay, as a screenwriting technique, this is a good move. It's not about danger to Superman's person. It's about he has to keep this package above there. How it looks in practice, I found very unengaging visually. The other thing is with the Pocket Universe, it's another one of these fantasy realms where there's just floating islands and blocks and mountains around, and I have no sense of physics within this universe. And that's just become a real stick in my craw over time. That the more avatars and video games I've played that have floating mountains around, I'm like, okay, but what happened? Am I supposed to be worried about the heights here? It's like, oh, what a big drop that is. Except also we're standing on a floating rock. So
all these characters fly. Is the other every single character who has an action scene in there flies, so it's okay.
Grounding some of this stuff, flying is impressive. More impressive the closer you are grounding it to the real world physics, where it's actually impossible. Okay.
Here's what I will say: I don't think this is a perfect film by any means, and I think some of its summer blockbuster muscle is kind of what is the issue. For example, the action scenes in this. I would admit, Man of Steel is a more impressive looking action scenes for sure. The way that Zack Snyder imagines these things visually, the way he photographs, the masculine form in action is kind of just more active and more impressive. The flying looks more like, it takes place in our world in some sense.
He has reverence for the act of flying and the act of
There's some really cool stuff he's doing visually in those movies that this film kind of doesn't really even attempt. It's the storytelling in the action scenes that is so divergent for me, and I think all of that works much better here. The last 45 minutes of Man of Steel is boring, honestly. It's just people who can't get hurt hitting each other through buildings. That happens over and over and over and over again. And
that's the thing. But we can praise Man of Steel's, or I can praise Man of Steel's better depiction of some of that fight stuff. But also in practice, it is fucking exhausting, and it's not that impressive. And this version is so much better written. The stuff, this Man of Steel's culmination of the Zod fight is Superman eventually has enough and breaks his neck. That's that's the progression. And here, the stuff with Krypto mauling Mr. Terrific's balls because he views them as dog toys, and then Superman using that against Lex's similar toys in the finale. I think that is so much better written and structured as action beats. But it is a CGI dog attacking CGI floating objects in a CGI environment.
I mean, yeah, again, it is, it feels like a cartoon. And I think this is kind of appropriate, maybe, for a movie. If I'm going to see a Superman movie, I'm all right with that. Or, I mean, that isn't to say that you couldn't do the good version of Man of Steel. Like, honestly, I still kind of think the best Superman film for me is the trailer for Man of Steel. Like, the 3 minutes that tells, that sells me Man of Steel is kind of my favorite Superman movie. And I wish that was what the actual movie was like, but it's not. It's this boring shit instead.
What you need is an anti-director's cut of Man of Steel, because we know what a Snyder director's cut is. It's longer and bloodier and more pummeling, but what we need is 25 minutes cut out of that with less pummeling.
That's a poorly constructed film in many ways. Like, there's some very good things in Man of Steel that are ruined by the way the film is put together. I don't want to talk about this.
It's got a rotten soul. This movie's got. I think there's some stuff about the presentation I don't love about Gunn's version, but it's got a good soul. Looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that when like the domino buildings were falling down. And I hope that ideally, since he's building a real world here, that there's going to be, not that it's going to come up, but like consequences. Like Metropolis will not just be rebuilt in 2 seconds after the next movie, given the number of buildings that fell down.
I don't know. It's a pretty elastic
responding to the kaiju and the imp. It seems like the people of this world expect that.
That's funny. Yeah, that there are constantly like city-ending threats descending upon Metropolis all the time, to the point where they're used to it. I mean, I even believe that they were able to evacuate, the entire city in this film because, well, they've surely had a lot of practice at this point. So you can tell me, like, yeah, everyone's out of Manhattan. I'm just like, oh, okay, cool, I guess.
With the most low-tech system of making an announcement I have ever seen. It's just like a bunch of speakers on telephone poles.
Well, anything more advanced than that is going to get torn up by kaiju. So you need a cheap option too. It's cans on strings, easily replaceable.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is all to the point, though. Like, we're doing something it's freed from the bounds of sort of real world stuff. Well, that's not true, because there is political ideas in this. God damn it!
Yeah, so I think we got to talk about politics now too,
and social media.
Yeah, it goes there. It is doing Silver Age stuff, but it's doing it with contemporary ideas. And like we all live in a world of internets. There are this all exists within a film. Well, it makes so much sense. The monkey gag is so good. That's kind of like the perfect combination of both these things at once. That we've got a goofy idea combined with sort of the modern world we live in, and I love that. It's a little shakier when we're talking about land grabs and who's this guy a stand-in for, stuff like that. But even still, I mean,
the monkey gag actually was one gag that did not really work for me. I thought.
No.
To do a monkey's, you have to top the Simpsons monkey typewriter gag at this point, which nobody's ever done in 30 years, and probably never will. Like, the blurst of times is just a line that will never be topped. And also, it's just like, I don't know, it's the wrong form of logic to bring to this, but it's like, wait, you don't need monkeys typing. You can have AI bots doing this.
Well, monkeys are funnier.
Yeah.
Yes, and as a physical law of the universe, yes, monkeys do make it funnier. But,
my problem with the monkeys was like one of these things where like I'm just like, shut up, brain. It's like, if Mr. Terrific's signals couldn't get in to track Superman, how could the monkeys be typing signals get out? Like, I'm just like, shut up, brain. This is not. This logical consistency is not necessary or expected.
Landline, I'm sure.
Okay, and the real world political stuff, that is, I mean, does that make for an awkward fit with this, what we're otherwise praising for being such a Saturday morning cartoon?
Well, here's how it works for me. The big scene where Lois interviews him as Superman, I think, is super important. It's a very, very crucial scene for the film, and I think it solves this problem because it is sort of an unresolved question by the end. Like, yeah, we're cool with the the government of Barovia. They're assholes. I can hang with that. That is all right. But at the same time, sort of a lot of the things she's asking are kind of left unresolved, and as they have to be a little bit. I mean, they had an entire movement of the MCU that was specifically about, like, can you act as an apparatchik of the state? And is this okay? Is this moral? And I think it's really neat to see Superman's worldview here, which is just like, no, people are getting hurt. I'm going to stop that. And there's like, well, how many international treaties are you breaking to do that? You can have that dialogue here, and maybe there isn't an easy answer presented in the film. But at the end that Superman is going to do the thing that prevents people from getting hurt. Ultimately, that is his true north. And so it works for that character. And so far, that's good. There's more room to tell stories there, though, if they want.
Yeah. It is a hard thing. I mean, it's a hard thing to put into real world terms because, okay, in any war, people are getting hurt, are going to be getting hurt and killed on both sides. And it's impossible to intervene in that without intervening on one side over the other.
Another way, this is weirdly like Quest for Peace, actually.
Yeah.
A lot of Quest for Peace in this movie.
I guess I feel my problem with that scene was I don't think they established, nor has it ever been established, except in Dark Knight Returns, that Superman is acting in the interest of the United States. Right? He is not an agent of the United States. The Justice guys, or whatever they're called, certainly aren't agents of the United States. They're agents of a private corporation. And I think that's the point. Like, he's acting of his own accord, based on his own moral values, and there's implications to that, sure, but like, it's not breaking international treaties because he's not an agent of the United States. And the time he was an agent of the United States in The Dark Knight Returns, it was like bad that he was acting in the interest of the United States.
Yeah, as a lawyer, that's an easy question to solve. I think as iconography in a movie he is dressed in the American flag colors and is another thing this movie wants to do, like politically, is position him as a patriotic hero and as an immigrant, and have both those things together. So he does need to be very quintessentially American, but also crucially not acting on behalf of the government of the United States. That's, again, for a Saturday morning cartoon, especially a difficult sort of needle to thread.
But they also make it very clear that he is not, because otherwise Lex Luthor wouldn't be trying to get the United States government to hire his goons.
Yeah.
Right? If he were actually acting as on behest of the United States, then they wouldn't need to hire Lex Luthor's guys.
Well, I mean, Luthor, of course, is a political figure in this, and I honestly don't know how you can't do that if you're making a Superman film in 2025. He has to be tech bro. He has to be. I mean, it would be. You would have to work really hard for him not to be a version of Elon Musk. So it's just sort of inevitable. You might as well lean into it. And yeah, I mean, as Elon Musk has sort of inserted himself into politics, the parallels, you can't fucking avoid them, unfortunately. There's no way not to do that, I don't think, if you're telling a Lex Luthor story.
I didn't see any of that.
Really?
Granted, it was 10 o'clock at night, and I have children, but I didn't see any of the outwardly like national political stuff. Where I saw the politics, for me, was around the fickleness of people in the social media age, that they just turn on Superman in a dime, and then they just turn on Lex Luthor on a dime with very little evidence, and the misinformation and what's getting out and what's not, like that hit me. That political commentary hit me more than the like nation's political commentary.
I mean, that's fairly straightforward. I mean, I think that obviously you have made up countries to help you along there, sort of composite characters, like he's a bad politician. You understand, you can do that. And I think that, yeah, like Luthor is not doing Elon Musk, but he's kind of doing all those guys a little bit, he definitely has government contracts.
Or Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos just doing Lex Luthor.
I think that's really what it is.
That might be part of it too. Yeah. I mean, the social media stuff comes through clearer and sharper in some ways. Obviously, that's stuff that hits close to home for Gunn, given his personal experience. It's also something that you can you can take your shots at a lot easier and more comfortable. Social media is the type of thing that you can denigrate, and even the people who are neck deep in it will nod along with it and go, yeah, that's right, blah, blah, blah. And if you want, if you're digging too deep into actual like international relations, then there's cans of worms there. But there's safe targets. And you know, that social media is one of them. You can say it's bad. It brings out the worst in us. It's really bad, especially every other person on social media besides me are the problems with it.
I mean, it's pretty straight line in this with the gun stuff. I mean, it's almost a surprise that Luther didn't expose a bunch of pedophile jokes that Superman made in 2012 on Twitter or something like.
Although social media ended up being the hero at the end. Eve hadn't taken those pictures, those selfie pictures, and sent them to Jimmy.
That's right. Yeah, Eve. Uh-huh.
Does anybody care that they use the same character names from the original Superman?
Yeah, there was an Otis too.
Yeah, Otis and Eve were Lex Luthor's people in the first Superman.
Very cute.
I wouldn't know how to begin to be upset at using besmirching Miss Tessmacher's name. Should we get into the cast now, or
yeah, sure,
get deeper into social media?
Right, we could go on for quite some time on a lot of this. So let's talk about this really strong cast. I think top to bottom.
Yeah, top to bottom, great. David Corenswet could have been a clone of Henry Cavill half the time, for all I can tell. Like I can't.
Looks like
their
him.
Bone structures are too similar. They're obviously they have Superman hair and all that. Crucially, but his demeanor is so distinct. He belongs in this Saturday morning cartoon universe, definitely not in the Snyderverse. And he did a great job. So even the stuff that I had a hard time buying, I think it's the sales that she was given was perfect for it.
I would love to see him age with this role too. I kind of like the idea of him, becoming a more established, steady hand at the forefront of this series of films as they're proposing them. I think he'll be really good at that. I think he's got a great look, obviously, but there is. Look, I mean, you can blame Gunn and everything else as much for this, but they found a way to highlight sort of an innate decency within this guy that works really, really well. He projects it correctly. The way they have him looking, the uniform and with sort of motorcycle jacket look, kind of got a lot of flack before release. I think it was really appropriate. It's not this painted on shimmery thing like that Cavill has. It looks like a costume. It looks like like he's put on a Halloween costume a little bit, and I think that's great. Actually, I think it's really cool. He's trying to live up to his ideals. This is a guy I can get behind. I really enjoyed him. Yeah, maybe for the first time ever as a live action Superman. I'm like, yeah, this guy rules. This guy's really cool.
One thing they did well with makeup and also made entirely irrelevant was the Clark Kent Superman back and forth. Mm-hmm. They gave him they put his hair forward and he had the glasses on and his demeanor was a little different. And the hypno glasses thing between that and basically everybody already knowing that he's Superman made it like, we're not making this movie about secret identities. We're not making this movie about going back and forth and him having to hide who he is. And I'm like, that's just another thing an obstacle that they got out of the way to tell the story they wanted to tell.
Yeah, they don't really do Clark Kent stories anymore, I guess. That feels like something for TV. Although I guess Reeve is very much about that. But they couldn't really afford to do much else, I guess, with those at the time.
I guess I'm sorry. I'm being hyperbolic about saying everyone knows who he is. I don't literally mean everybody knows, but the people around him effectively know.
It's weird Lex doesn't know.
All the characters in the movie know. Yeah, except for Lex. That's fine.
He's got facial recognition software that he's using. He should probably have figured that one out.
But hypno glasses, John.
Exactly.
Hypno glasses.
Yeah. Hypno glasses.
I kind of like the idea that, and that doesn't go to this movie, but I think the way I would square the circle is, as far as Lex is concerned, it doesn't really occur to people that Superman has a secret identity. that he's like
right.
walking amongst them as a civilian. They're like, oh no, he's got a Fortress of Solitude. That's where he fucks off to when he's not fighting kaiju.
Mm-hmm.
And why would he spend time away from his super harem?
Oh yeah, the super harem. What a that's some James Gunn reference, I think.
Just the amount of times that word showed up in this very otherwise like PG bordering on G movie. But even that, like it connects to replacement theory, real world conspiracy shit. Like that's part of the immigrant fear mongering.
It really does go there in a lot of surprising ways. And that all made it feel really immediate to me. I liked all of that because it did somehow manage to feel light touch anyway. Like, this is as political of a superhero film as anything since V for Vendetta is, I think. And at the same time, it doesn't feel preachy. It doesn't feel like it's scolding anyone. I don't know. Maybe if my politics were different, I would feel that way, as a lot of people do, about the super woke thing going on right now in right wing media. So maybe if I was,
it's not scolding us. So.
Yeah, it's not scolding us. Okay. But I don't know how you do Superman without scolding those people in some sense. I mean, it's not
Superman's fault.
Yeah, sorry.
People have sworn off empathy and kindness. Like, sorry. I mean, whatever. You deal with it.
Well, I mean, I guess I understand why they prefer the Randian Man of Steel Superman, I guess.
Yeah. Man of Steel, which is somehow so much less political movie and also feels preachier.
I agree.
It's just preaching these sort of kind of vague Randian bromides about how people are actually bad and you should just subjugate them to your will, and everybody will be better off somehow for that.
It's fucking what an irritating anyway. So Lex Luthor's great in this. This is my favorite Lex Luthor. This is great.
Even to round out the Daily Planet, just like
maybe too many of them. Gotta admit,
Wendell Pierce as we didn't need Beck Bennett in there.
Yeah,
sorry, I like him, but he's not bringing anything to this table. But I think Wendell Pierce is about as perfect of a Perry White as I could ask for, and Skylar Gisondo is somebody that I like. He's been like the least good part of several things that I've liked previously, but never like a real drag. But I'm like, he's in this too, whatever. But also when he showed up as Jimmy Olsen, I'm like, you know what? That is a perfect Jimmy Olsen. That is by design. That's going to be the least good part of this ensemble, and that's fine. And I thought it was a pretty good use of Jimmy in this. That contrasts with Nicholas Hoult, who's been the best part of many things over the years now, things that I've liked but loved him in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of knew he'd be great, honestly. I'm just pleased that the film correctly deployed Lex Luthor as well. Like he's a fine choice and interesting because I love that he was up for Superman but did not get the role, and so they then shifted him over to Luthor and is like, well, that makes so much more sense. And that's kind of the perfect guy to cast as Lex Luthor too. Somebody who didn't quite get cast as Superman.
That's like a diabolical like Stanley Kubrick move. That's what you should always do is cast whoever you're going to cast as Lex. Make them read for Superman first, so they feel rejected and resentful of the guy who gets it.
Mm-hmm. And he's like he's doing stuff like that we've seen him do in other things in The Favorite or The Great, but employed towards the greatest of all supervillains here, and it of course works. I would say the only thing is that there's so much potential in this Lex that I don't know that they fully handled it, but fortunately we have 15 years more of this cinematic universe to explore Lex Luthor and have him do anything they want, because I really want to see that too.
He'll be president at some point.
Probably, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can we go back to the Daily Planet people for a second?
Of course.
Sure.
Lois.
I agree that we didn't need what's the sports guy's name? But hilarious. And it gets that Silver Age comicsness of it, where individually I was like, why do they have this guy in there? Why do they have this guy in there? And then seeing them all trudge out in the roof and get into the Mr. Terrific's helicopter thing, I'm like, oh, this is like the goofy band of misfits that are like tagging along with Superman, going in the supercopter. And like, this is a very Silver Age idea of having this like ensemble of goofballs following along with Lois Lane driving the copter, which I just like thoroughly enjoyed. It just was like a little giggly titter in the background of, oh, that's funny.
You're right. It is kind of a piece with the old style of telling these stories. It's just that we already have a giggly band of misfits, you know, like maybe a couple other groups it's such a big ensemble that, maybe Cat Grant doesn't get to, maybe she doesn't make any impression beyond how she looks, I suppose. Well, I understand the impulse to want to build up the Daily Planet staff. It's a little overstuffed in this particular film, what with all your other groups and characters and plot lines and things going on to make them sing. I guess, down the line, if we keep making these movies and we keep making room for the Daily Planet staff, there is potential there. But, I couldn't tell you a thing about Cat Grant, for example.
She's the gossip columnist.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know who that was supposed to be or whatever. Her look was so like overstated that I almost expected to be a costume she ripped off at the end somehow for just some gag. But
like she always flirts in the comics. She always flirts with Clark, right? No. She's the gossip columnist, and then in the Supergirl TV show, she was like actually the boss. Like that was Cat Grant. That was meant to be the same character.
Oh, right.
Even though a totally different iteration of that character, but the boss in Supergirl was Cat Grant.
Callista Flockhart, of course.
Right.
Yeah, how about that?
There's something too. You could do something real world with the gossip columnist. Actually, like, is the thing that brings more clicks in, and so she like actually gets to override the editor and the real journalists. But this movie doesn't have time for any of that. It doesn't have time for what they do with her, which is practically nothing.
It's overstuffed in that way. It's a very big ensemble for being a fairly simple story. We got about, 15 named characters in this, if we count all the Daily Planet folks. Maybe more. It's a lot. I was surprised how much Justice Gang we got and how well they all landed and how distinct they were. I think they all worked pretty good. I think Mr. Terrific was a bit of the standout, but I was surprised how much good Guy Gardner there was in this. How much fun Nathan Fillion stuff. It's kind of one of the better roles he's had.
I mean, Nathan Fillion just does such a good job. I was so worried coming into this that they were just going to make... I mean, Guy Gardner is traditionally just kind of like a dick, right? But the fact that Nathan Fillion makes him a likable dick...
Yeah.
And you can see, like, Guy Gardner, he really does have a very rich history of being, like, second fiddle to Hal Jordan. So there's always this, like, little bit of, like, insecurity underneath him, which is why he ends up being such a dick. And they did a good job of bringing that out, even though Hal Jordan doesn't exist yet in this universe.
He will.
The fact that they kept the bull haircut, it just was lovely. I wish, like, Hawkgirl, they can only do so much with certain characters, with the amount of characters that they didn't do, but they didn't do anything with Hawkgirl other than, snide young woman who ends up murdering the guy. But, like, Guy Gardner and Mr. Terrific, they did, I feel like, an excellent job with.
Yeah, I'm impressed. I mean, I guess I'm not over impressed that Nathan Fillion was able to sell the sort of blowhard super guy.
He does.
It's his sweet spot. I was surprised how much of it there was. I'm more impressed that they managed to introduce Mr. Terrific as also kind of a dick, but in such a distinct way from the Fillion Guy Gardner. It's like that. Those don't feel like they're reusing any beats from it among them, and that's an effective characterization. Again, I'm not sure that we need this many other superheroes in our first superhero movie and our introduction to this cinematic universe, but it does work scene by scene, those characters.
But if you want to create a world where superheroes are not special, where there are metahumans everywhere, you do need some other superheroes around.
And these are not guys you're going to build a film around. Although I kind of want to see what Mr. Terrific's about now.
James Gunn builds films around guys you don't think you're going to build a film around, like the Guardians of the Galaxy, like Creatures Commandos, like every project he has is lesser known secondary heroes that he makes something out of because he has the freedom to do so.
Well, it's almost like he needed half an hour of that material as a security blanket here to do the Superman stuff.
I did want to give a quick call out to the moment when Lois Lane insults Guy Gardner's haircut and he says, "Hey, 348 women disagree." I think that is brilliant. That is such. So much character exists in that line. It is perfect. Yeah. I like that he's keeping track up to 348. Yes. Tells you everything you need to know about him.
And maybe we should talk about Lois Lane a bit. We skipped past her at the Daily Planet, I felt like. I don't know if there's ever been a more perfectly piece of casting than Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane.
I got my Terry Hatcher thing. I don't know. She elevates that show for me so much.
I don't know if I can't argue with your puberty. Brosnahan is having recently watched 2 Days in the Valley. Rachel Brosnahan is a much more talented performer.
Sure, yes. I understand. Yeah.
And she can do a blending of, she can bring some of that 1950s sensibility from Miss Basil, and she's not completely a woman out of time. She makes sense in a modern context, but also can tap into something from that era.
She's not straight up doing His Girl Friday, but has accents in the costume and in the performance that remind you of it without being this sort of heightened mid-Atlantic kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of heightened, so Ma and Pa Kent,
loved him.
This is another thing where I love this as contrast to Kevin Costner and Diane Lane.
Mm-hmm.
Fine actors both, but also like sex symbols, not very removed from their prime. Like the fact that Ma and Pa Kent look like actual people is great. Yeah, we're big Pruitt Taylor Vince fans on this show, obviously. But I did find myself a little annoyed with this sort of. There was an overplaying of it. I mean, I guess having them talk so slow, and they just. I guess maybe it offends me as a native Kansan that they just start to veer into Southern accents sometimes. Like, no, that's not. That's not the Kansas accent. There isn't really a Kansas accent. That's the whole thing. Like. Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, that's the non-regional diction Veronica Corningstone's talking about. I mean, they sound like me. I mean, most sound a little less nasal than me, perhaps. But, there's not a Southern accent in Kansas. That's a little bit of a gripe. And I felt like it was a little overplayed how they were just like, oh, shucks. We just love our boy.
I wanted them to have a jalopy, I wanted like the whole just like,
Again, it's a cartoon. It's a live action cartoon. Those are cartoon caricatures of old farmers. Like when she was
overalls with one button.
Right, when she was like, she had the phone on the table and she was talking into the phone. I was like, she's an old lady, right? As opposed to, I like immediately thought of in Lois and Clark. When Lois goes, I don't know why this stuck in my head, but like when Lois goes to like Smallville for the first time, she's like, I got to send a fax. And Ma Kent is like, what? And she's like, a facsimile. It's a modern blah, 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 blah. And then Ma Kent like lifts up this gingham blanket and is like, oh, do you want me to turn the fax machine on? And it was just like this, it was like a subversion of this Kansan, person who like couldn't possibly know what a fax machine is because this was back in 1990 whatever, and she knew, but like this Ma Kent would absolutely not know. She'd be like, I don't know how to run this VCR, and I found that like very endearing.
I liked all that. I was very fond of it, and I like that we're not forced to take these characters too seriously. But when the moment when he's tells him you are who you choose to be, a moment that has been said so many times in films of this type, it worked for me. It totally landed.
Films of this type being James Gunn superhero movies. This is the fourth time we've heard it.
But it wasn't I just like it wasn't Jor-El doing all this. Not we can whatever, they made Jor-El bad and wanting him to be take over, but I never understood why this hologram image was the most impactful moment on Superman in all these movies, as opposed to like his actual parents, which make him Superman. And so I appreciate that he did that in this one.
This is something, again, I think Man of Steel actually did really well. Well, no, it didn't, because it blows Pa Kent so hard. But I love the idea that you've got, two daddies that kind of represent different approaches to masculine identity. And it seemed like a really cool idea. You've got, two very male movie stars of different types of masculinity presenting those roles. And then they just ruin it so hard with the Kevin Costner portrayal.
Yeah, Zack Snyder's just incapable of doing the second kind of masculinity. It's set up to be such a good contrast there.
And they kind of do it here, though. The contrast, at least. They spend a lot less time with it. They can make a lot less hay out of it. Yes, it's Bradley Cooper there as the movie star Jor-El, but it's also just like, it doesn't draw attention to itself too much. He's got one thing that he does in the film, really. He shot for 2 hours. That was it.
I feel like that took me way out of this movie, though. If anything pulled me out of the movie, it was Bradley Cooper as Jor-El, because they specifically, maybe they were harkening back to Marlon Brando being a huge movie star. Is that what you're saying they were doing?
Well, yeah, you make the space daddy is the movie star, and then you get the character actor to play Earth Daddy.
Mm-hmm. I just feel like there were so many non-Hollywood A-lister movie stars in this. That having that one in there sort of like, oh, Bradley Cooper took me out of the world there briefly.
It's a tip of the hat to pass Superman.
I'm sorry to keep it to Harvey on Man of Steel, but that is such a funny framing of that now. Is that, yes, he got that. Okay, we need a Marlon Brando type to play Jor-El. Russell Crowe, great, perfect. Now we need a homespun character actor type for Pa Kent, and the best he could, the lowest he can lower himself to is Kevin Costner. That's so you get to the actual salt of the earth.
There's something that could have worked there. Like Kevin Costner could be a good dad, but he just wasn't in that film.
That's what. I'm sorry. This is a failure of mine. It shits me so much. It's set up. It's right there. They have the thing where he's dealing with a super hearing as a kid, and Maz Kent's way of soothing him is to tell him to make the world small and shut out some of that stuff so you can have peace of mind. And you're so close to the thing. Jor-El sent him to save the whole earth. Ma and Pa Kent tell him, think small, act local. And Zack Snyder just can't bring himself to not drown those kids. He just wants those kids to drown. Too bad. You just can't get it across the finish line.
So many bumbles. Like the tornado scene is part of that too. It's just
hilarious.
Anyway, you're not going to have. There's nothing in this film
intentionally funny.
There's nothing in the Gunn Superman that is going to grate and irritate in that way. It's all kind of cool moments and stuff that works, or at least is unobjectionable for me. This is a lot more, and I think that this is a breezier, less this doesn't feel obligated, even as it is the linchpin of the new universe of DC films. It does not feel obligated to be the biggest, most blown out, most epic Superman Jesus metaphor of all time.
I was so grateful when I left that movie theater. I was like, not a single Jesus metaphor.
Me too.
Goodness.
I love that. And I mean, here, I'm going to make it a Jesus thing again, though. This is the Last Temptation of Christ version of the Superman story. It is focusing on not his divinity, on his humanity, which the film explicitly does. They are kind of eschewing all the lonely God stuff that they always do in these movies, especially in Man of Steel, and just make him, make his humanity front and center. And that's why that's the number one thing that the movie does, I think, that makes it work and makes me excited for more.
Last Temptation is trying to divorce Jesus from the Christ metaphor,
exactly.
What's the real character here?
Exactly.
Yeah. No. This. It jettisons all the Christ stuff and doubles down on the immigrant stuff, which is a good and resonant take for the times, I would say.
And it's just a good way to create empathy for this guy. that he's not, the Randian super fucking breaker. It's like, maybe you shouldn't save those kids. There's none of that shit in this. It wouldn't even be brought up that he shouldn't save kids to protect his identity. Like that's, I mean, look, it's easy to complain about Man of Steel. And this movie necessarily, I think, has to kind of exist in contrast to it. Yeah. I think it kind of has to be a response to it. Simply because that's been the last Superman for 15 years or whatever. And this has to be a clean break and a change. So I guess that this is a necessary thing, that this conversation
I think occur. There are times in this movie, though, and maybe this is where I'm, too much movie brain, too oversensitive or whatever, but struck me the way that Justice League felt like it had to be a response to the complaints about Man of Steel. That no one's saving him, or not even just like Age of Ultron. It felt like they were really consciously doubling down on it. We need to be all about saving civilians because that was such a big deal in the wake of Man of Steel about how callous it was. Rightly so. That was really jarring watching that movie in the theater the first time. Going, man, this Superman is really uninterested in human life. And then Age of Ultron. That's the better approach. It felt a little heavy-handed there and responsive. And in this case, I'm saying that a lot about this is the right approach in contrast to the Cavill version. But sometimes it just felt I was very conscious of a lot.
I didn't think it was heavy-handed, though. I thought it was mostly light touch. And they have dueling philosophical monologues at the end. But those are, kind of they earned it at that point in the film, and these are also sort of the intrinsic realities of the Superman Lex Luthor contrast and conflict. That's in large part what it's always been based on. So I think I
watch it again with an eye towards this. Is this something interesting to tie back to the very, very beginning here? Is in a world where Superman is such a late coming addition to the scene. That messes with the basics of what we've come to understand the Lex Luthor Superman dynamic to be, which is that if there have been super gods and monsters permeating this world for 300 years, it no longer makes sense for Lex Luthor to have, an inadequacy of Superman's strength makes him feel insecure in his mighty brain or whatever.
I don't like what this Lex Luthor explicitly says is that they love him. It's not about his strength. It's not about its power. It's about that people love Superman, right? And my guess is people don't love Guy Gardner Green Lantern, and people don't love Hawkgirl, and people don't love Mr. Terrific because he's deadpan, right? People love Superman because he's not a corporate shill. He's just out there saving fucking squirrels, And I think that's what it seemed to me Lex Luthor.
That's the most Elon Musk thing to me.
That he resents his popularity. What the twist I would like to see on that is a little, and I'm not sure how much this is in there. I'd like to watch that monologue again to see, is that maybe for this version, what Lex is actually resentful of is not so much Superman so strong. It's that Superman is able to be purely good while being strong. And Lex has always had more of a Zack Snyder view of the world, which is that strength is only expressed through cruelty and domination. And the idea, what Lex is more shaken by is not so much that somebody could be super strong, it's that they could be super strong and still be a Boy Scout. And I didn't have to crush all these people on the way up to become the smartest, most powerful man in the world. And that's what he resents. That's what he wants to, it's almost more of a Batman Joker thing. If he wants to sort of prove that he's a fraud, his goodness is fraudulent.
Could it be selfishness versus selflessness, right? The power of selflessness versus the power and the selfishness. He had knocking the mug off the table to make the people pick it up 3 times. That was a really important
good bit,
thing. It was a good bit, and it was a really important moment for his character.
Mm-hmm. Ultimately, I think that's why Lex Luthor and Superman are so well paired. Is that they have dueling philosophies in the same way that the Joker and Batman do. That they are well composed as hero and villain. And there's a lot of stories you can tell by kind of pushing and prodding the philosophical beliefs that each one kind of represents. That's neat. That's, I think, what makes them so effective as a team. I don't know if team is the way to put it, but, as characters in contrast with each other. Foils. Yes. Uh-huh. So they nail that here. This is probably the best handling of that in a movie. I've always been disappointed by Luthers in films, and this one I think is the one that really they got it finally. They found what was cool about Lex Luthor and put it on screen. Cool. I don't know. I mean, there's some great evil shit that he does in this that I really enjoy. Throwing ex-girlfriends in a pocket universe jail. That's creepy shit. Like that they did that. That one murder he performs in the middle is shocking. That's a dark moment.
It is just jarring because it's a Saturday morning cartoon world, and then there's this sort of, he just puts a gun to somebody's head and shoots them.
This actually does get me to a question I wanted to ask you, Alex, which is, you have a 5-year-old son.
Mm-hmm.
When do you think you can see this movie?
I was thinking about that. Mm-hmm. My son is afraid of a lot of things, so I don't think he's going to be ready for that.
This strikes me as he'd be a good Superman for a kid that age.
Except for that one murder in the middle, right? The kaiju monster is kind of silly and not really that scary. But also the Guy Gardner, like the flipping people off and the cursing and the listening and the thatting, like,
fair enough.
When do I want to introduce? I don't think I'd want to introduce a 5-year-old to that yet. I mean, like what I was thinking about this morning. I would show him the animated series. I would show him the Christopher Reeve stuff. I would show him those Supermans before any of this stuff.
Fair enough. I do see that this could be a good one going forward, though. Like, once he's a little older, this could be his Superman.
9-10.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I also think some of the stuff we're talking about, it just makes sense to go a little more chronologically. And this is so much in risk. Like, there are parts of this movie that probably make less sense without the context of the Christopher Reeves movies.
Or of all of Superman, really. Yeah. This kind of takes us for granted that we know the Superman story. Yeah.
Yeah, we're tired of origin stories. Yeah. But the kid might still benefit from it, one or two.
It's kind of the same way they do Spider-Man in the MCU.
God, we're deep into superhero stuff, man. They've done everything already.
Yeah, that's right.
3 times, 4 times.
And we'll do it again. But it looks like this is good to go, right? I think we're going to see, I think we're going to greenlight a few more DCU films now. We're going to see a Batman. We're probably going to see this Superman cast again in some context. It was successful enough.
That what I'm really impressed by is that James Gunn is like they've shut off some stuff and then they've greenlighted some other stuff like a Clayface that wasn't in the original announcement,
right?
And they've canned a bunch of stuff that wasn't the original announcement. And what I read was that they are not going to begin production on anything until they have a completely full script that they like. And that feels like a really good way of making movies that I didn't realize other studios didn't do.
Almost revolutionary at this point.
But if they do that, we're going to get good stories.
Hopefully. Yeah, like we were talking last time that, we didn't see the purpose of doing a movie about the Authority. And it seems like they agree, ultimately. Like, yeah, we couldn't crack this in a way that made sense, so we're not doing it. At least not yet. And they moved Clayface in because something hit for Clayface, which I find hard to believe, but I guess it did. There's no other reason to make a Clayface movie, so it must.
Oh,
must
I will say one of the female villain, whatever they called her,
the engineer.
Yeah, she is an Authority. She's one of the Authority. In the Authority.
That's building up that then. Okay. Yeah. I liked her very much, by the way. I thought she was cool. And I guess we'll see her again, probably. No one really dies in this except that one falafel vendor.
RIP. Yeah. And the dictator of Barovia.
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I wanted to see more of him, too. But I don't know where I think it's obvious that there'll be a Batman at some point. Brave and the Bold.
But I read they don't have a script for that yet. Like, they're not happy with the script, so that's not happening for a little while.
Interesting.
We'll cross these bridges as they come.
Yeah, Supergirl next year.
We're going to get more of this in some fashion.
Oh, we need to talk about drunk Supergirl. All right.
Well, that's a tease for next time.
Mm-hmm.
Did that work for you? I see people bitching about it online. And I don't know that I'm ready to be like, yes, I want to see her in a movie, but we're going to in a year. And
if you read the comic, The Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, right, it is right out of that story about why she gets drunk.
People love that, I hear.
Right. It's very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The gist is she's been traumatized because she saw the destruction of Krypton multiple times. Like she was a teenager when Krypton was destroyed, and then she got sent off, and then like part of Krypton survived in this little place, and then her mom died, and then that place got destroyed. So she's been traumatized by the loss of her civilization multiple times, and so she's trying to manage that by drinking.
I don't have any context for that in comics or whatever, but I've seen several other Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and sort of this characterization made immediate sense to me. This is
right. Very James Gunn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting with the sort of authoritarian harem-owning Kryptonians, how they pull that off. But, whatever. I'm sure they got a take.
Yeah. We'll find out. Mm-hmm. Thanks again, Alex, for joining us.
Yeah, pleasure as always. And yeah, we'll talk to you again about the DC at some point, I hope, because it seems like they're coming on strong now.
I'm very excited that there's something worth watching again.